Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking out my YouTube channel today, The Study of Antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I am your host, Nick Barksdale, and today we're joined again by Dr. Owen Rees. Dr. Rees, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk about this new project.
Today, we have a very interesting, and it's honestly among conspiracy theorists, so on and so forth, it's one of the most controversial topics in ancient history, and that is, how were the pyramids built? And so today I've got Dr. Owen Rees on, and he's going to walk us through his answer on one of the most controversial topics among novices in ancient history.
The building of the pyramids. You're absolutely right. The pyramids are definitely one of those topics where everyone's enthralled by the beauty of the pyramids. They're absolutely it's an intoxicating image, especially, and whenever someone says the pyramids, they immediately mean the Great Pyramids of Giza. They rarely mean anywhere else. And there are loads of pyramids. There are absolutely loads of pyramids throughout Egypt. And it's one of those where actually I think the more you read about all the pyramids, the more you realize the mystique disappears. So because it's so mystical, and because you look at the Great Pyramid itself and you think that's enormous, how on earth did they do that? That's not possible. That people who don't have lasers and don't have massive cranes, how could they possibly move all that? That must weigh like hundreds of tons of stone, and it's because you don't see it in its constituent parts. So when we dealt with this on Bad Ancient, I threw this straight away to an Egyptologist, Ariana Saka, and she just thrived on this. She was like, I've got this, leave it to me. Because there is just so much scholarship on this. And although conspiracists enjoy manipulating general misunderstandings, and they enjoy exploiting the fact that people can't spend the time to go and read all the scholarship that answers all these different questions, because no book answers every single one of them. Because obviously you write a book, how did they build this pyramid? Here's how they built this pyramid. Okay, well, how did they build that pyramid? And you're like, okay, so now it's not as simple as that, but you get the idea. More, research produces more questions. So when Ariana Saka did this, we had a word count idea in our mind of about 1,000 words an article, just to keep it easy to read and easy to digest. And she sent one back with like 2,500. It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous, but it's so thorough. It goes down to, where did they get the stone from? Oh, we know where they got the stone from. There are quarries. We know which quarries. And actually, some pyramids are built very near to those quarries to deal with the logistical issues. Not all of them, but some of them. Okay, but then how did they design them? Well, all you need is actually a very basic set square, and you're pretty much set to go. I say flippantly, but we actually have the tools that they did to do this. We have the archaeological evidence of this. It is there. Well, okay, how did they move the stone? We must be talking 10, 20, 50 tons of, one block. Well, actually, even the Great Pyramid of Giza, the average sort of stone is about 2.5 tons. So heavy, don't get me wrong, but not insurmountable. So the idea that people kind of dismiss is this, they put it on a sled and then that's pushed on rollers. Oh yeah, but that's going to smash. There's no way you can move that. Well, actually, we know that you can. We do actually know this. For instance, there is experimental archaeology has shown that, say you take a 2.5 ton block and you're attempting to slide this on a surface, let's say sand. First of all, the sand must be wet. Yeah. Which is interesting because actually our pictorial evidence suggests that that's exactly what they did. When we have evidence of large groups of people pulling a sled of like a big statue of a pharaoh, must be weighing a fair few ton. And there's someone at the front of the sled pouring something. And we weren't 100% sure what this was for many years. And then basically they started to do more experimental archaeology. And it's come to the idea that actually they may well be pouring water or some other liquid. That's creating less friction as you're moving. So, experimental archaeologist, 2.5-ton block, a prepared surface that we think that they did. How many people? Thousands, must be thousands. And then what? How are you going to do that for every single block? We're talking millions of people. This is impossible. 20 people can move a 2.5-ton block. 20 people. This is not insurmountable. This is not impossible. Where alternative theories come is that they constantly throw large numbers at you. This is impossible. This is impossible. It's not impossible. It is perfectly doable. So the next question is, okay. So, okay, you know where they got the stone. You know possibly how they moved it. There are a couple of theories, don't get me wrong. Again, this isn't set in stone. Excuse the pun. This isn't set in stone, and there are a few theories, but all of them solve the problem. Okay. Next thing then is, okay, so you can do that, you can design the pyramid, you can move the stone. Well, how do you get the people? Well, again, we know that. What Egypt has regularly is a flooding of the Nile. The flooding of the Nile gives you a lot of people with not a lot to do for a period of time. So you have available labor. This actually allows us to dismiss another myth, which is that slaves built the pyramid. Slaves did not build the pyramids. Non-enslaved people built the pyramids. We know this. The floods, among other things, allows that to have happened. So, okay, fine. So you've got a potential for a population. You've got a potential of time. Okay. Next question is, well, where did they live? You know, you're going to build a pyramid in the middle of nowhere. Where do they live? Well, this is where the mundanity of it all comes in. We know where they lived. We know where they've lived since the 19th century. We found the villages. They're very dull to people who just want to know about the pyramids. To historians, to Egyptologists, to archaeologists, they're really interesting. A random one for you is we found a rat trap. So we know they had rat problems. You know, we can assume they had rat problems. Of course they must have had rat problems, but we found rat traps. That's just fun. You know, it's the humanization of history that we often forget. These are individuals dealing with normal, mundane problems. I'd like to say that further. Recently, they've discovered a lot of papyri. So we've got a lot of written evidence which tells us the logistics, the administration that went in to building these pyramids, where they talk about having to deal with getting wood in from abroad, using a small harbour to bring things in from elsewhere, where just the setting of working groups. You know, breaking down 2,000 men into 1,000 teams that then breaks up into smaller teams, and those teams are given different jobs. You know, where's the water coming from? You know, all this kind of stuff. We've got it. It's dull. It's administration. This is why it's not often talked about in the public sphere, because it's not sexy. Okay, and it doesn't sell books in the same way. But we do have answers to a lot of these questions. So that kind of gives you an idea, like briefly, like the article that Ariana Sarko has written, like just gives you so much detail on this. If you want to know more, go take a look at it, and the extra reading that she suggests. The other one that's really worth noting, because this is where the big conspiracy books, we purposely try to avoid talking about the alien idea, because I don't want to make people think that we're dismissing the valid questions that there are. Right? Just because someone thinks that aliens built the pyramids does not make them an idiot. Right? And there's this real tendency to dismiss people for this, and I don't think that's fair. I think a lot of the conspiracy theories are manipulative. And so a lot of this is about, actually, there is information. Here is that information. If you choose to still believe what you do, at least acknowledge that you're doing that against all this information. So the one thing that the conspiratorial group have on the pyramids, which is sets the groundwork for everyone to believe them is they talk about the Great Pyramid at Giza. What they don't talk about are all the pyramids before it. Okay, so we have the stepped pyramids, the sort of the earlier designs. We have earlier designs which started as quite narrow and then were built on, which gave us a finished design. This tells us that people are creating a design for a pyramid and then adapting as they're building it. There is a classic example of this where we know that they changed their idea because it wasn't working. Okay, there is what's called the bent pyramid at Dashur, where if you just Google it, it's a great pyramid where the angle at the bottom starts, I think it's a 55-degree angle they started with, and they're going for a big pyramid, and basically maybe a third of the way up, it suddenly changes to roughly like a 43-ish degree angle. And it's fundamentally, they're experimenting with a solution to a problem. And it's kind of theorized that the problem was that it was unstable. So that angle is an unstable angle. So they had to change that angle. And what's interesting is the same pharaoh who's kind of commissioning this going on built another pyramid afterwards, what's called the Red Pyramid, which is roughly at that finished angle, 43-ish, degree angle. So, if you're going to extrapolate, they attempted one pyramid, realized a better angle, and then when they did the next one, they stuck to the solution. The point being, this is a trial and error. Yeah, this is what this is: trial and error, trying new things, making mistakes, adapting to those mistakes. These are human beings. Human beings make mistakes. Yeah, and if you remove mistakes, yes, everything looks quite astronomical and quite phenomenal. How on earth did they get there from nowhere? And the answer is they didn't. They got there through hundreds of years of trying. That's how they got there. Yeah, so this is it. So that's kind of gives you a basic breakdown. There are solutions offered. Are there answers to every single question? No, not yet. Experimental archaeology, Egyptology are working hard to try and answer more of these. But ultimately, people don't like the answers because they're boring. Oh, how did they build them? Well, here's the administrative breakdown of how they built them. You aren't reading that. How did they make something so mathematically impressive? Well, here are about 5 that aren't. That's not exciting. That's not interesting. And so that is how they're exploiting our desire for a simple answer.